Hello, I am the Irritable Board Gamer, and I have Irritable Board Gamer Syndrome. You know, that dread feeling you get when someone brings a game to the table that you just don't really want to play? Well, that's not the case today, because I'm going to do a setup and play of one of my favorite games, Spirit Island. I'm going to cover just the base game today, and we'll hopefully do more videos highlighting the concepts from Branch and Claw and Jagged Earth. Base Spirit Island plays 1 to 4 players, with each player picking a spirit and defending an island from invaders. You use your powers and the inhabitants of the island, the Dahan, to scare and kill the colonists trying to cause blight to the island. There are 3 steps to setup: the invader board, the player setup, and the island and supply. And that's where we'll start. I'm going to be setting up this game for 2 spirits, so we'll use 2 random boards. You can pick which ones you want to play, or you can choose them at random. They can be arranged any way you choose, but this is probably the best way to do it for your first time. Note that each board is made up of 8 separate land spaces, 2 sand, 2 forests, 2 wetlands, 2 mountains, and the ocean. As you can see, each land has a number in it, and it will also have some certain icons that will tell you what to place in each land for setup. So, looking at this board here, this spot will be for 2 Dahan, this spot will be for a town, this spot will be for 1 Dahan, this symbol will be for a blight, and as always, in land 2 is a city. So for each board, we'll start filling in all the spaces. We'll put a city here, we'll put 2 Dahan here, we'll put 1 Dahan here, 2 Dahan here, a town, another Dahan, and here, we'll put a blight. In the lands that have no symbols, you can just leave those empty for now. And now I'll set up this other island tile. Once setup is complete, make a supply of all the extra invaders, the Dahan, and the blight. Next, we'll make a deck of the minor powers and major powers, shuffle them and place them off to the side with room for a discard pile. Now we'll move on to setting up the spirit boards. I've chosen 2 spirits, a Spread of Rampant Green and Lightning Swift Strike. Your spirit boards are double-sided, they have lots of lore, they also have a detail on setup and playstyle for each different spirit, giving you a brief summary of their powers and complexity. The setup for a Spread of Rampant Green is to put 2 of your presents on your starting board, 1 in the highest numbered wetland and 1 in the jungle without any Dahan. If there's more than 1 such jungle, you may choose. The setup for Lightning Swift Strike is place 2 of your presents on your starting board in the highest numbered sands. Let's take a look at where those will go. Over the course of the game, your spirits may spread out over the entire island, but to start the game, you pick 1 board to start set up on. So for a Spread of Rampant Green, we're going to put 1 in the highest numbered wetlands, which is going to be this one, and 1 in the jungle without any Dahan. Lightning Swift Strike gets 2 presents put in the highest numbered sands. Before the game, players may discuss amongst themselves which is the best board for them to start on. Next, each spirit takes their board and will put their presents from right to left, leaving the first 2 numbers exposed. Set aside any reminder tokens that you have for use later on in the game. Finally, each player should take their spirit's starting hand of unique powers and spend some time reading them. The card backs will match what their spirit looks like. We'll go over the cards very soon. The final part of setup is the invader board. We'll start by putting 4 fear markers per player in the fear pool. Next, shuffle the fear cards and deal 3 fear cards face down on the fear deck space. Then put the terror level 3 marker on top of it. Then deal 3 more fear cards on top of that. The terror level 2 win condition there, and 3 more. For the base game, your starting fear deck should look like this. Next, we need to create the invader deck. The invader deck is made up of 12 cards from 3 stages. Shuffle the stage 3 cards, discarding 1, which will leave 5. Put those down first. Shuffle the stage 2 cards, remove 1, leaving 4. Put those on top of the stage 3 cards. Then shuffle the stage 1 cards, remove 1, and place those on top of the 2s and 3s. Finally, decide whether or not you're going to play with a blight card or without one. If you're going to play without one, you're going to add 5 blight per player here. And as of this recording, Eric Royce, the designer of Spirit Island, has made an adjustment to the core rules, which provides for 1 extra blight to be added total to this spot. So for our 2-player game, we'll have 11 blight. If we were going to play with a blight card, we'd place the blight card here. It'll say to give us 2 blight per player. So we still add that extra blight as the designer has stated at this time. To finalize the setup, invaders will take their initial action, which is explore. Flip over this top card. The Explorers are going to explore into the sands. Conveniently enough, with the base setup, Explorers will explore into every land of the first card. So we place an Explorer in each of the sands. Let's take a look at the turn structure. I'll come back to the Invader actions in a little bit. A turn is broken up into 5 phases. First, the Spirit phase, the Fast Powers phase, the Invader phase, the Slow Power phase, and finally, Time Passes. Let's take a look at each phase now. In each Spirit phase, your Spirit will do 3 things in order: grow, gain energy, and play and pay for power cards. At the top of each Spirit board is the Growth option. Spirits will pick one option unless the Spirit states otherwise. You must do everything shown but can choose the order you want. If you have 2 or more presents in one land from a Spirit, it will create a Sacred Site. We'll take a look at those in a second. So for Lightning Swift Strike, if we take this second option, we're going to remove 2 presents from our presents track and place them on the board. Anytime you take presents, you take from the left side first. So you could take 1 and 1 from the top and bottom row. You could take 2 from the top row. You could take 2 from the bottom row. But you never take from the right-hand side. So Lightning's power allows us to put 2 presents on the board. 1 at range 2, 1 at range 0 from our presence that's already on the board. Again, this can be done in any order. I could put a 3rd presence here, and then put another presence 2 spaces away, which would be 1, 2. That may not make a whole lot of sense right now. It's probably better to do presence 1, 2 spaces away, and then add another presence here to make that a Sacred Site. This is the icon for Sacred Sites. This is mostly used in targeting and other abilities. In addition to picking one of these growth options for a spread of Rampant Green, it also always grows. It adds a presence to a jungle or wetland 2 spots away from where it has a presence. This growth option, which allows us to add 1 presence 1 away from where we already have our presence on the board, it will also give us another ability, which I'll go into in a minute. We could take both these presents off because it's always also going to grow. Again, we can do these growth options in any order. So I could put my first presence here, which is 1 spot away from where I have a presence, and then I could place this second presence in a land 2 spaces away, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I did it in the different order. You can also see a spread of Rampant Green has a special rule that involves a Sacred Site. Once all the spirits have finished their growth phase, we'll gain energy. You take a look at your presence track and see the number that's revealed. In this case, it's a 1 for the Lightning, and you gain that much energy. As the game goes on, you can see Lightning will gain more energy. Finally, you'll decide which powers to play, denoted by the number of card plays as indicated, and pay for them accordingly with the correct amount of energy. In Lightning's case, Lightning will be able to play 3 cards this turn. Later in the game, up to 6. To start this game, Lightning has only decided to play 2 cards. The number in the top left corner of the power card is how much energy you need to pay. You can place the energy on the card, and that will let you know that you've paid for it. Spread of Rampant Green used this growth option to add a presence and got an extra card play for the turn. So we add that extra card play to 1. Spread of Rampant Green will get 2 card plays and 1 energy. Spread of Rampant Green will play these 2 powers. Before we get into the fast power phase, let's take an in-depth look at your power cards. Power cards come in 2 flavors, fast and slow. Each card has a range and a target land. You don't need to declare your target during your play and pay phase, only at the time that power will be used, so keep that in mind while declaring which cards you're going to use. The fast power symbol is denoted by this red circle up here, and also it says a speed. It has a picture of a bird. A slow power ability has this blue ring, and has a turtle. This power can be used at a range of 2 from a Sacred Site. This power can be used at a range of 1 of any of your presents on the board. Some powers will only be able to target a specific land. Once everyone has paid energy for their card, you can discard the energy tokens to the supply. Let's take a look at some of the fast powers and how they would target things. Remember, we're going to ravage in the sands and build in the wetlands this turn. So I fast forwarded to a point in the game where both spirits are able to play 3 cards. The top 3 cards will be cards that Lightning Swift Strike will play. The bottom 3 cards will be cards a spread of Rampant Green will play. Fast powers may be played simultaneously. So let's take a look at what Lightning Swift Strike will be able to do here on the board. Lightning Swift Strike is represented by the red presence tokens here on the board. So let's take a look at the first power that will be played. Steam Vents. Steam Vents is a fast power. It has a range 0. It can target any land, and it will destroy one invader. This ability down here is the Threshold, and that involves the elements, and I'll explain that in a second. This card will destroy one explorer. Destroying a town or a city will produce fear. Other terms like remove or replace will not cause fear. The next power we're going to play is Lure of the Unknown. It's a fast power, has a range of 2, and has to target a land with no invaders. And it will gather a explorer or town. Let's see how this will work. If we take a look at this land here, this land does not have any invaders. It's within a range of 2 from one of our presence. We can gather this explorer into that land. The next power we're going to use is called Isolation. Fast power, a range 1, and has to target a land with Dahan. It's going to push one explorer or town per Dahan. If we take a look at this land, it's 1 range away from one of our presence. It has Dahan in it, so let's push those to here. During the course of Spirit Island, you'll be doing a lot of pushing and gathering. So let's define those a little better. Gathering means to move that many things into a target land from lands adjacent to it. So if we were going to gather 2 Dahan into this land, we would gather 1, 2, because these 2 lands are adjacent. If we were going to push things from that land, we would push that many things from target land to adjacent lands. If we were able to push 2 explorers from this land, we could push 1 to here and 1 to here. Again, if we were using a power or an ability that allowed us to push 2 Dahan into a land, we could push both of these into this same land, or we could push them into 2 different adjacent lands. So for Spread of Rampant Green, one of his fast powers is going to be the Gift of Proliferation. It's a fast power. It doesn't have a range, but it targets another spirit. Target spirit can add 1 of their presence up to 1 range from 1 of their presence. If Spread of Rampant Green targeted Lightning Swift Strike could add 1 presence 1 space away from 1 of their presence already on the board. Also during the fast power phase, you can use your Spirit innate powers if you produced enough elements. Elements are extremely important to survival on Spirit Island. When you decide to pay and play for your powers, your spirits release certain elements into the ether. Those elements are listed on the left side of your power cards. They will allow you to use certain innate powers or activate thresholds on some cards, resulting in extra abilities. If we look at these 3 cards that A Spread of Rampant Green has played, you can see that there's 3 plants and 1 water. If we take a look at A Spread of Rampant Green, we can see that there's 1 water and 3 plants. 1 water and 3 plants is enough to allow us to take a look at this innate power, all enveloping green. It's a fast power from a sacred site, and it can target any land. It will allow us to defend 2. So if we look at this part of the board, we can see that we have a sacred site here. We can target any land. We're going to target this land, and we're going to defend 2. And that's where you can use one of your reminder tokens. This will come into play during the Ravage. One thing to note is A Spread of Rampant Green unlocks an element on his presence track. A couple other spirits will do this, so this is something to pay attention to. During the slow power phase, we'll be able to use Creeper's Tear into Mortar. We have 1 moon and 2 plants, as you can see, but we also have 2 moon and 3 plants, as you can see. That will allow us to do 1 damage to a town or city, and then that's going to allow us to repeat this power. When we get to the slow power phase, we'll see how this works. One other important note about elements is they're never used up, so they can be used for multiple powers. They're only cleared at the end of turn. Now that we've finished playing the fast powers, let's get into the invader turn. The first thing we do in the invader phase is check the blight card. If there's still blight on the card, that's good. If something would have happened that this card had been turned over, there would be a bad effect that could happen. We'd have to resolve that. Next, we see if we've earned any fear cards. Each time we earn fear, we move that amount of fear from the top of the fear pool down to the generated fear pool. Once we've earned enough fear that the top is clear, we take a fear card, place it face down here, and move these back up and reset them. If we have a fear card here during the check the fear card phase, we'd flip it over and do its abilities. As you earn more fear cards and the terror level increases, the fear cards become more powerful. you only activate the part of the fear card that's based on the terror level. For instance, we have terror level 3, you activate only the bottom part. If it was terror level 2, you'd activate the middle part. The most common way that we're going to generate fear, aside from powers, is going to be destroying towns, which generates 1 fear, or destroying cities, which generates 2 fear. So here we have the board set up for a Ravage. Let's see what's going to happen here in the Sands. Let's start over here. We have an Explorer and a Dahan. Explorers will do 1 damage and have 1 health. Dahan have 2 health and will deal 2 damage. In this Sands, the Explorer will deal 1 damage to the Sands and to the Dahan. We denote that by flipping the Dahan over. Then the Dahan will deal 2 damage back to the Explorer. The Explorer with 1 health is dead. If we take a look at this land, the Explorer will attack and deal 1 damage to the land, and there's no Dahan to fight back, so that Explorer will live. The land taking 1 damage doesn't cause a blight. 2 damage will cause a blight. So let's take a look at what would happen there. If you remember earlier in the turn, we used a Spread of Rampant Screen ability to defend 2. So what that means is this town and the Explorer are going to attack for 3 total damage. We're defending 2 of it. That's going to prevent that 2 damage from hitting the Dahan and the land. So only 1 damage is going to get through to this Dahan, and we can flip them over. 1 damage hits the land, which doesn't cause a blight, and then the 2 Dahan will attack back, dealing 4 damage. The town has 2 hit points and is destroyed. The Explorer has 1 hit point and is also dead. You'll see how important defend is throughout your playthroughs of Spirit Island. So if we take a look at this land, we have no defend. So this town and Explorer are going to deal 3 damage. 3 damage is enough to cause a blight. We take a blight token from the card and place it on this land. When a blight enters the land, 1 presence from each spirit is destroyed. In a future turn, if this town and Explorer ravaged again and caused another blight, we would have 2 blight. This would cause what's called a cascade, meaning we'd take another blight and place it in a land adjacent. If there was no other lands to go to, and it went here, this would cause another cascading blight. And we would have to place another blight on the board. Also, 1 of these presents would be destroyed. Only the lands that are represented by the Invader card ravage for this turn, so that would only be the Sands. This Invader here and this Dahan will do nothing. Cities also have 3 health and do 3 damage, so they're very important to take out early. So if we had an example where this mountain was ravaging, this city would attack, dealing 3 damage. 1 Dahan would die, 1 Dahan would flip over, denoting it's had 1 damage. Then they would attack back. Both would attack at full strength, dealing 4 damage to this city. It would be destroyed, and we'd add 2 fear to our fear pool. Once the ravage is complete, we move on to the build phase. Let's go through what's going to happen here in the wetlands. Once we finish the ravage phase, we move on to the build phase. Invader is going to build in all the lands according to the Invader card. In this case, wetlands. Invaders are going to either add a city or a town. If the land has more towns than cities, it's going to add a city. In all other cases, it adds a town. Builds don't occur in lands without invaders. So if you remember earlier during the fast power phase, we destroyed this Explorer here. This land won't build. This wetlands that still has an Explorer will build a town. This wetlands that already has an Explorer and a town will build a city. And this wetlands that already has a city and an Explorer will build a town. No matter how many invaders are on a spot, only 1 building is built. Later on in the game, Explore cards may have 2 options on them. You do both of these. So let's take a look at exploring jungle and wetlands. If we were exploring in jungle and wetlands, we would explore in this jungle, this wetlands, this wetlands, this jungle, this wetlands because it's adjacent to the ocean. This wetlands has no towns or cities next to it. Neither does this jungle. After they finish exploring, we move all the cards to the left. The Ravage card will go to the discard pile, the wetlands will move to Ravage, and the Explore card will move to build. If we look at this mountain, we can see it's adjacent to the ocean. so an explorer will come out. We take a look at this mountain. It's adjacent to a land that has a town, and an explorer will come out. This mountain is also adjacent to the ocean. It will get an explorer. And finally, this mountain is adjacent to 3 lands that does not have a town or a city. No explorer will go here. Also note, no matter how many towns or cities are in the adjacent lands, you never put a second explorer. It's always only 1 explorer. After explorers finish their build, after explorers finish ravaging, building, and exploring, we move into the slow powers phase. Here we only have 1 card from Spread of Rampant Green. We'll play this. In this situation, we no longer have a place of power to play this card, which is required. This card would just be discarded at this point. If you remember, we had enough elements to activate the innate power. As you can see, we have 2 moon, 3 plant. We'd be able to deal 1 damage at a range of 0 to a town or city, and then we'd be able to repeat this power. I think this is as good a land as any. We'll deal 1 damage to this town, and then deal a 2nd damage. We remove this town, and we generate 1 fear. After all of our slow powers have happened, we go into the time passes phase. We remove any reminder tokens, and any buildings, towns, or Dahan that have taken damage, reset. Finally, during time passes phase, players will discard any played cards to their own personal discard pile. Their remaining cards will stay in their hand for the next turn. A spirit is limited to playing only the cards in their hand. Fortunately, there is a way to reclaim all your cards from your discard pile by using this growth option. Reclaiming allows you to take all the cards from your personal discard pile and add them back into your hand. The other part of this growth option is to gain a power card. Let's see how that works. If you were to gain a card through a gain power growth option or a power card, you always draw 4 cards from either the minor or major power deck. You choose 1 and add it to your hand. The rest go into a discard pile. If you gain a major power, you still draw 4. You pick the power that you'd like to keep, discarding the rest. You place that power in your hand, and then you must forget a power by discarding it. If you were to discard one of your unique powers, you just place it underneath your player board. A reminder, you can always forget the card you just drew if you don't think it's going to help. So how do we win or lose Spirit Island? Well, losing can occur in 3 ways. Too much blight on the board. If the Healthy Island card ever loses all the blight off of it and it flips over, you'd follow these instructions. If there is ever no blight on this card, you'll lose. Unless otherwise noted, blight removed from the board goes back on this card, so look for powers that will help you there. If enough blight comes on the island that it removes 1 spirit completely, you'll also lose. The final option is not being able to draw an invader card. If you're not playing with a blight card, and there's ever no blight on the board, you also lose. Winning is all about fear and terror. The game will start at terror level 1. The victory condition would be to have no explorers, no towns, or cities on the board. As you earn fear throughout the game and fear cards, the terror level will increase. Once you get to terror level 2, only no towns and no cities is needed to win. Finally, if you get to terror level 3, only no cities. If you ever exhaust the fear deck completely, you have an automatic victory. These win conditions take effect immediately, so always check to see if you've won. In the rare case that something causes you to meet a win condition and a lose condition simultaneously, you win a sacrifice victory. You were destroyed, but the island and the Dahan and the other spirits survive. So if our win condition was terror level 3, meaning no cities, and we were able to destroy these 2, no matter how many other invaders are on the board, we'd win. So let's recap. After setup is complete, reveal the initial invader action card, and place the explorers in the land. Spirits will then grow, remove presence from the space furthest to the left of their boards. Then they'll pay and play for cards. Fast powers happen first, as well as fast innate powers. Next, check to see if the blight card has an effect to happen, and see if any fear cards have been earned. If there are any, flip them over and follow their instructions. Then invaders will ravage, then build, then explore. Then spirits may play their slow powers and slow innate powers. Finally, time will pass, cards will be discarded, damage is reset, and elements are cleared. Repeat this process until the game ends in either a win or a loss. I hope you enjoyed the setup and rules overview for the base game of Spirit Island. I'm the Irritable Board Gamer. Please like and leave a comment if you enjoyed it. Thank you.